Today, Bolt Thrower. I always considered Bolt Thrower to be a live band in the first place. Their shows were awesome, always. The musical output of Bolt Thrower at the studio contains classics of death metal, and we're going to take a closer look. With me is Emma today, helping me along with the album cover presentation. The time when singer Carl Willits had left and Dave Ingram replaced him. His old band Benediction actually went on tour together with Bolt Thrower. I saw them in 2002 at the Hamburg Markthalle. It was a great gig, but the songs from the new album didn't impress as much as the songs they played from Mercenary and For Victory. Honor Valor Pride is an okay album, but not their best. In an interview with Rock Hard magazine, Gavin said that it had been the idea of original singer Alan West to write song lyrics with the subject of war. Most extreme bands of the 80s, like Slayer on Hell Awaits for example, used satanic lyrics, and Bolt Thrower sought something different from the real world to differentiate themselves from the rest. Before the first album, Bolt Thrower had done the usual bunch of demos, but also played a Peel session for the BBC radio. That was not only a good opportunity to spread their name in the country, but also the first time they worked with a professional producer. This Peel session, combined with two more they played until 1990, was released as the Peel Sessions LP. Highly recommended to complete your Bolt Thrower collection, because these renditions are actually better produced than the album versions. Both guitars and drums are much clearer than on In Battle There's No Law, which has a rather muddy production. Furthermore, Alan West was still on vocals for that first Peel session, and his more thrash-style singing fit the early punk-influenced songs better than Carl's growls on the album version, in my opinion. Carl was a beginner at the time, and his first recording was a step in the right direction, but not an instant classic. It happens oftentimes that a debut is overrated in an album ranking due to nostalgia, but I think in the case of Bolt Thrower it was rather the second album which established the band. The last Bolt Thrower LP gets top marks for musical performance and the best production they ever had. The bass, for example, never sounded better. Those Once Loyal perfectly continued familiar themes, but somehow it's not dirty and dangerous enough for a death metal blow. The album took the band to a point where all was said and done, and they couldn't just continue with the next album and the next after that. So they decided to stop at this point. Makes sense to me. They came on tour for Those Once Loyal in 2006 with Malevolent Creation and sold me this wonderful t-shirt. It's almost 20 years ago, and man, I miss those days. No Guts, No Glory is one of my all-time favorite songs by Bolt Thrower. Powder Burns has a great melancholic lead guitar. Among my favorite songs are also Zeroed and To the Last. It's a great album. It couldn't exceed its predecessors, namely Fourth Crusade and For Victory, but the songs delivered exactly what I wanted as a fan, and I'm perfectly happy with it.
All that remains of your dying world lies crumbling, twisted ruins. From the ashes, none will return.
A couple of years ago I put a feature on my channel called The 10 Most Important Records of My Life, and among these 10 life-changing albums I included Realm of Chaos because it was the first death metal album I really loved playing. Lost Souls Domain, Realm of Chaos, and especially World Eater are my favorite songs here. This record is incredibly heavy for 1989 and still impressive today. Barry admitted in an interview with Voices from the Dark Side magazine, though, that they were not satisfied with the sound as they had tuned too low, a mistake they didn't repeat on the next LP. On the Fourth Crusade, Bolt Thrower expanded their activities from the future war games to wars of the distant past. Bassist Joe explained in an interview for Grind Session magazine that they wanted to get away from the cartoons, do something a bit different, and for the same reason they used a historical painting instead of a Games Workshop picture. Spearhead was the single from the album and it did well. Through the Ages is the surprise track of the LP, a spoken words performance listing the historical dates of nearly constant warfare that human history unfortunately comprises of. Essentially the message the band is bringing across in all their works, but in a new form with some keyboards in the background. Cenotaph became the first Bolt Thrower hit single, and there was also a video on MTV which probably brought some entirely new fans to the band who were not coming from the death metal underground. In typical Bolt Thrower fashion though, they had never intended to make a hit single. Cenotaph was an accident because the UK tour had been booked for January, but the War Master album wouldn't come out in time, so they wanted the crowd to know at least 2 of the new songs. Thus they released this appetizer. Guitarist Barry said in an interview with Skullcrusher magazine that War Master was very spontaneously written in the rehearsal room, whereas the next album, Fourth Crusade, involved a lot more time for planning and changes in songwriting details. War Master was basically the last album of the early Bolt Thrower years, capturing the raw excitement once again and perfecting their type of death metal. Go for it.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
When Bolt Thrower came on tour for their 5th album, 1995, with Cemetery and Brutality, they played a small club in Hamburg, the Logo, which was so packed with people that you thought it would burst, exceeding any safety limit. There were people flying over your head all the time. It was one of the most insane gigs I've ever witnessed. Bolt Thrower played larger venues after this tour. It was the last time I saw them in such a small place. This vivid memory aside, For Victory is a slightly more accessible record than other. This vivid memory aside, For Victory is a slightly more accessible record than other Bolt Thrower albums. Melodies and tempo changes became more organic parts of the songs now than they were during the Realm of Chaos days. The guys had improved as musicians and made For Victory one of their finest releases. In the end, grenades are fired and then suddenly silence. What an effective way to close the record. Thanks for listening.